Nau mai, haere mai. Welcome to this module from the New Zealand Dementia Foundation's Dementia STARs education series. Dementia STARs is a series of 8 modules covering some of the most common topics that caregivers work with every day when supporting people living with dementia. You are an extremely important part of the network of people who work in dementia care, and we hope you find this course very helpful for your work. Our society surrounds us with messages about losing weight and emphasises the things we shouldn't eat. For many people living with dementia, the challenge is quite different. It's a loss of appetite. Eating well is important for the health and well-being of all of us, and this is certainly true for people living with dementia. But staying nourished can be a daily challenge. In this module, we look at what you can do to support people living with dementia to eat well.
Tēnā koutou, e tipu aki ao ke murahiku, ko G te whānau, ko Susan toko ingoa, ko tēnei taku mihi ngā tangata whenua o te rohi nei. Ka nui te mihi kia koutou, nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Susan G, and I'm a dementia researcher and educator. I'm also the liaison officer for the New Zealand Dementia Foundation. Thanks for coming to join us for this Dementia STARs module on eating well and dementia. Our focus today is on the practical side of how to support people living with dementia to eat enough. We'll be covering 3 key messages: encourage, enable, and adapt. Let's start by looking at how we can encourage eating. Now, from a medical point of view, there are 2 key needs that the brain has for good nutrition. It needs some specific micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, to run well. The main micronutrients that doctors look out for in people living with dementia are vitamin B1, vitamin B12 and folate. Now, your brain also needs a decent total number of calories so that it has enough energy to run well. One of the most common and important risks that people living with dementia face is weight loss and the gradual development of undernutrition because they aren't eating as much. As dementia progresses, there can be lots of changes that can impact on how much someone feels like eating. So, for example, people may lose their sense of smell and taste. They may be less able to manage food preparation, so they have less control over what they eat. They may be less active. They may be more confused and less able to concentrate on eating. They may have difficulties with the physical act of eating, so getting the food to their mouth or swallowing. And their brain's regulation of appetite may have changed so that they aren't getting as many hunger signals. Now, what this means is that many people living with dementia aren't eating well, and there are high rates of undernutrition and malnutrition. Being underweight and undernourished makes a person living with dementia more vulnerable. For the brain, malnutrition makes people living with dementia vulnerable to a more rapid decline in what they're able to do independently. And they're much more vulnerable to delirium. Because malnutrition weakens the immune system, people are more vulnerable to illness and infection. They're more vulnerable to wounds that don't heal. Being malnourished makes people vulnerable to losing muscle strength, and they feel weak and tired, and that can make them more vulnerable to falls. Malnourishment can make people vulnerable to low mood and loss of appetite. So when we see these kind of issues, one of the questions we want to be asking is, are they eating well? We're keeping an eye out for signs of unintended weight loss. Things becoming loose, rings, clothes, or dentures. Maybe a gentleman needs to start wearing a belt. In some situations, you may be asked to weigh a person or keep a record of how much they eat and drink. Malnutrition is a great example of why your role is so important. You're a priceless set of eyes and ears because you spend time with the person. If you notice these kind of changes, do report them. For people living with dementia who have small appetites, we want to stimulate that appetite and encourage eating to help prevent malnourishment and all those vulnerabilities that come with it. We're going to look at some ways that we can do that. First of all, we can make the most of the experience. To help us think about what that might involve, let's think about planning a perfect party.
Welcome to Plan the Perfect Party Quiz. There aren't any right or wrong answers. Would your perfect party have savoury or sweet treats? Would it be at night or through the day? What appeals? Something new or old favourites? How would you organise the food? Casual grazing or sitting around a table? Who would you invite to your perfect party? Everyone you know or just your nearest and dearest?
One thing that planning our perfect party reminds us is that food can be a highlight of the day. Good food can be a sign of love. It can signal that someone cares about us and values us, or even that we care about ourselves. Food can be a source of pleasure. Now, kilojoules and nutrients are important, but food is so much more than that. Hopefully, these questions reminded you of how many happy memories of people and events are wrapped up in food. We can use this way of thinking about eating and the eating environment to help to encourage eating by making the most of the experience. The party quiz also shows how important it is to get to know the person. There wasn't one correct answer for those questions. It was all about you. Now, we're not going to be planning a party every day, but this helped us to think about some of the things we might want to get to know about a person to help make the most of meals. What kind of food do they like? One person might not want salads because they think they're rabbit food. Another person might long for food from their own cultural background. We all eat more of the food that we like. Familiar foods and routines can help a person to know what to expect and to feel relaxed. When do they like to eat? Some people are used to eating their main meal at lunchtimes, others prefer it in the evening. If we can, we want to respect these routines. And we can use the routines to provide nutritious food when the person feels most like eating. What memories, opinions, stories are wrapped up in food? Making food for their family? Childhood foods? World War II rationing? Growing food? These types of conversations can be a great way to encourage reminiscence. And those conversations can help to make people more interested in meal times and food. Just talking about food, especially before a meal, can help to make us hungry. Sometimes we can look for ways to make a meal a special occasion based on the time of the year, a special event, or a special memory, like remember when fish and chips came wrapped in newspaper? What kind of an environment says it's time to eat for them? We can arrange the environment to cue that it's mealtime and to provide a pleasant, relaxed setting that helps them to focus on the food. We can get to know the habits or routines that signal that it's time to eat for that person, like washing their hands, saying a karakia, or thanking the person who made the food. What about people? Eating with others can be a really useful cue to eat. Food's often a social activity throughout our lives. So eating with relaxed company who are eating as well is a strong cue to eat. Imagine we go to the movies together and I get popcorn, but you don't feel like it. We sit down and I'm eating that popcorn and munching away. I'm really enjoying it. It smells so good. And eventually I turn to you and I say, "Oh, would you like some?" And you say, "Yes, yes," because there is nothing you want more in the world right now than that popcorn. And there's actually a lot of research evidence that people eat more when they have company. But everyone is different. And some people living with dementia may find eating with others distracting or irritating or overwhelming. Another way we can encourage people to eat is to make the most of senses. People living with dementia can have trouble processing information from their senses. And for people who are older, there can be age-related changes as well. Less information from our senses can make food less appealing, and that can reduce our appetite. So we can be alert for these kind of changes and help overcome them. Let's start with vision. Have you heard the saying that people eat with their eyes? How food looks is a big part of how appetising it is. If you can't really see your food, then you're much less likely to eat it. People who are living with dementia can have trouble processing what their eyes are seeing, so they may need more contrast to be able to make sense of what they're seeing. Think about white fish with white sauce, with mashed potato and cauliflower cheese on a white plate. It doesn't only look unappealing, a person with vision problems might not even be able to tell that the food's there at all. A well-known study back in 2004 found that people living with dementia ate 25% more food when the food was served on a red plate. We can use contrast by providing a variety of colours of food on a bright, plain-coloured plate. Now, patterned plates can be a bit confusing. As people get older, their eyes get cloudier, and they may need brighter lighting than you do to be able to see their food well. Of course, another reason things can look cloudy is because you're not wearing your glasses, or you have really grubby glasses. So it can make a big difference to clean those glasses. What about taste and smell? Well, we can start to lose our sense of smell and taste when we get older, and dementia can also take away these senses. So for people living with dementia, a meal that was really tasty a few years back might taste bland now. We might find that people respond better to more strongly flavoured food. We might use a stronger cheese in a cheesy dish, or use more of their favourite herb. One of the things that's really interesting is that the ability to taste sweet things remains, even when the ability to detect other tastes declines. So sweet food may be something that the person can still really taste and enjoy. And you might notice that some people can still manage their dessert even if they're not interested in their main course. Some people might enjoy having sweeter tastes like honey or fruit added to savoury dishes. And just to say that sometimes people may make their own combinations where they mix up everything on their plate that seems horrifying to us. If they're enjoying their creation, it's not doing any harm. One slightly different thing that can be useful to be aware of is that those changes in the sense of smell can mean that some people living with dementia can't smell that food is off. So in some situations, we may need to help check the safety of fresh food that they have stored. When we're thinking about senses, sensory cues can help people recognise that it's mealtime and stimulate their appetite. We might use visual cues like having the dining table set out nicely with placemats and cutlery. We might draw their attention to the smell of the food. We might turn off the TV and have gentle music instead. These little things can make a big difference. They help to focus attention and remove distractions. They help provide a relaxed, pleasant environment. They help to cue that it's time to eat, and they help to stimulate appetite. What about our activities before the meal? Could we involve the person in the food preparation, like washing some veggies, picking herbs, stirring the bowl, or spreading the bread? Could we involve the person in tasks around getting ready for the meal, like laying the table or putting tea bags in the pot? All these things help stimulate appetite. If a person has a small appetite, it can be tricky to get all their food needs into 3 meals a day. So our next strategy is to make the most of each mouthful. Here's 3 ideas. First, little and often. Small, frequent meals can work really well for someone with a small appetite. A big meal can be overwhelming, and people may refuse the meal or give up when they know they can't manage it all. We can serve a smaller meal on a smaller plate, or we could put parts of the meal out one after another instead of all together. Remember, we can always give seconds. Our second idea is snacks. You might find that some people prefer to graze and snack throughout the day, especially if they can't remember when they last ate. The idea is to provide lots of snacks and finger food. We can always have food available to grab and also offer snacks every 2 to 3 hours. And our third idea is to add energy. When we find something that the person is eating, we might be able to add energy and protein without increasing the size of the meal. This is sometimes called food fortification. For example, we might add cheese or butter to mashed potatoes, or add cream or custard to dessert. Avocado, nuts and olive oil can be handy high-energy extras. We can even enrich milk. We do this by adding 4 to 6 tablespoons of milk powder to a litre of milk, and then we use the enriched milk as usual, so we can add it to cereal or drinks. To recap, people living with dementia may often need extra encouragement to eat well. To help people with small appetites, we can think about making the most of the experience, making the most of the senses, and making the most of the food. Our second big idea for supporting people to eat well is to enable. Enablement is about doing things with people instead of for them. We focus on what the person can do instead of what they can't. Sometimes, as dementia progresses, people may have difficulty getting food from their plate to their mouth. Now, we want to enable them to keep doing as much as possible for as long as possible. Why is it so important to enable independence? Well, let's imagine that you go out for dinner and your dinner companion says to you, they're a bit worried that you're going to spill food on your good clothes, and they remind you that you're a bit clumsy, so they say for your own good, they should spoon feed you your dinner. There, in the restaurant. How would you feel? Well, most of us would feel humiliated or angry or embarrassed. If we do everything for people, we can take away their dignity. If we keep doing everything for them, we can take away their confidence and skills. It's another example of use it or lose it. Enabling people to maintain their function in eating also helps to promote safety. So imagine that I have your favourite lolly and I'm unwrapping it in front of you. You can see it and smell it. What you might notice is that your mouth would water. Now, the increase in saliva is actually getting you ready to swallow. When we're physically involved in the act of eating, our body has cues that the food is coming. So, for example, the movement of our arm and the sight of the food. And our body can get ready. We can control the pace so that we finish one mouthful before we start the next. When we don't have these cues and control, it's much more likely that the food goes down the wrong way, which is known as aspiration. This food can reach the lungs and cause aspiration pneumonia. Being totally assisted to eat dramatically increases the risk of aspiration pneumonia. So if a person living with dementia is having a difficult time using eating utensils, we can think about how to make eating easier. When a toddler first learns to eat, they don't start using a knife and fork straight away because that would be too hard. A toddler progresses as their fine motor skills improve. They start by eating with their hands, then they might use a special non-stick bowl and a spoon, then they might use a special knife and fork that's easier to hold. So actually, lots of us have had experience of using adaptive equipment to enable eating, even if we don't remember it. We can think of the harder tasks that we learnt last as being the first tasks to become challenging as dementia progresses? We can work backwards. Can we provide special cutlery that's easier to hold? Can we provide a special non-slip bowl or plate with edges to help get the food onto the utensil without it running away? Can we move to using a single spoon? Can we use finger food that doesn't require cutlery? Finger food can also be useful when you're supporting someone who walks a lot. This can be a really tricky situation because not only is it hard to get the person to sit down and eat, they're also using up lots of calories. Can we put some bowls of finger food along their indoor route? Can we walk with them and provide some finger food as we go along together? We can also enable eating by being patient. We can be relaxed about taking longer to eat. We can reheat meals that get cold. We can prompt to see if the person would like to eat more rather than whipping away their plate because they've stopped eating. If someone does require assistance with eating, we still want to enable them to do as much as they can. Tracy Hawkes, who's an occupational therapist, is going to talk us through a really helpful technique for enabling people to still have cues and control while we're assisting them to eat.
There are many ways that we can support a person when they are eating and when they're drinking. Today, what we want to do is to show you the hand-under-hand technique. And this was developed by Tepper Snow. And it's an incredibly useful tool because it helps improve communication, it helps make a connection with that person, and it also allows us to support the dexterity and motor planning that maybe a person living with dementia is starting to lose or is lost. And therefore they can't hold utensils and bring them up to their mouth. So what we want to do is to show you how to use the hand-under-hand technique. And first and foremost, I've checked in with Susan beforehand to make sure that I'm sitting on the correct side. You want to sit on the person's dominant side because that's what their brain is programmed to do. So Susan is right-handed, so luckily I'm sitting on the right side. So first to start with, we're going to look at the hand grip. So I'm going to pick up Susan's hand and place it into mine. So I'm going to hold her hand in a very gentle grip, but it is definitely firm. Susan describes it as if we're going to play arm wrestling, then we're actually in the right position, but don't do that. Okay, so the reason that we've got her hand here is because Susan now sees her hand on top, and that makes much more sense to her. I've also got my fingers free to do whatever I want to do with them. So I'm just going to show you with this wee plate of food that you can see that I can comfortably hold the spoon here. And Susan, we're going to be listening to what her hand is telling us. So she's looking at the food, she's connected, that's great. So we're going to scoop up a bit of food, not too much because I don't want to drown her. And then we're going to bring it up. Now I'm listening to see if Susan's okay with that or if she's actually saying, no, I don't want to. At the moment, we're okay. Here we go. Now you can see that Susan naturally opened her mouth because she's connected with the spoon through both her arm and through where our process and focus is, which is down here. So we'll try that again. Again, I'm listening to what Susan's telling me through her hands. Oh, no. I don't know if you could see that, but she actually placed a bit of pressure downward into my hand. And that's telling me that either I haven't let her swallow or she's just not quite prepared yet. So I'll just check in with that. Okay. Are you ready for some more? Great. Okay, so we're going to try that again and see how there we go. That was much easier. Well done. Okay. The other thing is that we're coming in at a good height for Susan, so I'm not bringing the spoon in too high for her. We're naturally in a nice calm position. Here we go. Yep, perfect. And again, she opened her mouth. Be really mindful that if a person isn't opening their mouth, we're not going to force it in, okay? The other way that we can use the hand-under-hand technique is for drinking as well. There we go. So we've prepared Susan's favourite cup of tea. That's what she likes. And again, I've got access to it. There we go. Susan, are you ready? Yep. Good. Great. Now you need to watch that whole time to make sure that you're not pouring too much in and that Susan's actually engaging with that activity. So we'll try that once more. Oh, okay, so Susan's not watching what she's doing, so I actually want to bring her attention back here again. So we're going to have a cut. Yep, great. There we go. Now actually what Susan's done at that point is she's naturally taken over where her hand actually started doing the tipping point. And we find that on a regular basis, that the person will naturally actually start to take over, and we want to enable that, okay? Remembering that we're only doing with the person, we're not doing for the person, okay? There are a couple of other activities that we can do which will support that person using a hand-under-hand technique. And again, it's often around the mouth and the face. Remembering this is a really vulnerable place for a person. It's our breathing, it's our vision, it's whether we're choking or not. So it's naturally going to be a place that people are a little bit reluctant around. So one of those is our oral care, okay? So thinking about mouth cleaning. Now I know that for some people this can actually be a bit of a struggle. So it's no different. I've got the toothbrush in my hand and we're going to be bringing it up. Now this oh, there we go. Good. Oh, Susan's taken over. That's fabulous. Well done. Okay, and we're going to try around here. Good job. Okay, well done. And we bring it back down again. Now, if that person is really not wanting you to do that, they will clearly make that aware to you. They will push their hand away, they might shut their mouth, and that's absolutely fine. We know that any of the techniques that we try will work on some days and they won't work on other days. And for some people, they're not going to want us doing it. One more activity, and that is face washing. So I've already dampened the flannel. We're going to pop that over here. Now Susan can feel that as well. And we're going to bring it up and we're going to wash her face. There we go. Okay. So that's how the hand-under-hand technique can support a person to be part of the process instead of me doing it to her. And we know that that actually can be really frightening. What we would really like you to do is to give it a try with your friends, with your family. We want you to be really familiar with how to hold a person's hand. We want you familiar with how to utilise the utensils. But we do think that for a number of people that this is actually going to be a really helpful tool for you guys to put in your kit. So give it a go.
You can see how the hand-under-hand technique can be really useful to have in your toolkit of skills to help enable independence. Now we're going to look at ways that we can adapt to eating or swallowing difficulties that people living with dementia may experience. Coughing a lot during or after eating can be a sign of swallowing difficulties. Alongside this, you might notice that they start to avoid certain foods. If you notice these signs, do report them. It may be time for an assessment by a speech-language therapist and the introduction of modified textures. Softer, moist foods are easier to swallow. When someone's been identified as needing a modified textures diet, it's really important to support them to follow that diet consistently. Ashley Farr is a speech-language therapist, and Ashley's going to explain a bit more about modified textures for us.
Sometimes we need to modify the texture of someone's diet to make it safer and more comfortable for them to eat. IDAC, or the International Dysphagia Diet Standard Initiative, is the standard international terminology used in the health sector to describe texture-modified foods and thickened liquids for people with dysphagia. This guideline includes 8 levels ranging from thin fluids up to a regular unmodified diet and is identified by text labels, numbers and colour codes. IDAC helps improve safety for persons with dysphagia, ensuring they receive consistent food and modified texture fluid. There are 5 different diet textures which we as speech-language therapists use to prescribe modified diets. These range from the most modified to the least modified. The first option is a pureed diet. This is a smooth pureed food with no lumps. It generally holds its form on the plate and the liquids don't separate from the solids. It doesn't require chewing, and if we took some puree on a spoon, tilted that spoon to the side and let it fall onto the plate, it would fall from the spoon in a single lump. A good example of this is thick Greek yogurt or chocolate mousse. The next level is a minced and moist diet. Biting is not required and very minimal chewing is often required. People can usually use tongue force alone to break down the food. It can be eaten with a fork or a spoon and is soft and moist. Like with minced meat, small lumps are no greater than 4 millimeters in size, and like a pureed diet, fluids shouldn't separate from the solids. An example of a minced diet is a minced bolognese. Following this, we have a soft and bite-sized diet. This diet consists of soft, tender, moist pieces of food with no separate liquids, like you might see in a minestrone soup. It contains bite-sized pieces no greater than 1.5 centimetres and can be eaten with any form of cutlery. It will be soft enough that you can break it down by turning a fork on its side and pushing the fork through the food. The persons will be required to chew, so ensuring dentures are well-fitting here is important. Think chopped tin peaches or sliced banana. A regular diet is now broken into two categories. At the top of the IDAC pyramid is a regular diet. This is a normal, unmodified diet, and a person is capable of eating any texture. Below that is a regular, easy-to-chew diet. This diet texture is almost a regular diet, however tends to avoid really hard foods such as a whole apple or what we might consider high-risk foods such as raw nuts or stringy textures like pineapple or runner beans. This diet is usually recommended for people who prefer softer foods or maybe have fewer teeth. It's important to stick to the recommended diet textures. This includes snacks and foods that the family bring in. Ensure the family is informed of diet modification and provide the relevant education as needed. Instruct them not to bring in any alternative textures as snacks. And finally, ensure dentures are in place for meals, and if they are loose, trial a denture adhesive such as Polydent. If someone's dentures are very loose and unable to be secured, seek a dental review. People without teeth can generally tolerate soft foods and will not usually require a pureed diet because of not having teeth alone. It's important to remember that a pureed diet is not always the best option and can result in food refusal and impacted quality of life, especially whereby someone doesn't understand the reasons why they need a modified diet.
What do we do if someone isn't eating enough? The solutions are going to be as varied as the people we support. We need to go into problem-solving mode. Here's the ABC of problem solving. Ask. What's the problem? Be as specific as you can. Brainstorm. Bring together what you know about the person and the situation. Come up with lots of possible ideas about why this might be happening and lots of possible solutions. Choose. Pick the solutions that you think make the most sense and are most likely to help solve the problem. Do. Put your chosen solution into action. And evaluate. Check your results. Did it work? Is the person eating more? Now, this step isn't about giving up when your first try doesn't work. It's about asking yourself, what can we try next? To finish this session, let's explore a case study. Meet John. John's 85. He's an ex-farmer who's now widowed. He has a vascular dementia and he's recovering from a chest infection. John's lost weight over the last 2 months. You're now using a food and fluid chart which shows that John's intake is poor. At meal times, John says he doesn't like the food that you provide. He often just moves the food around his plate. John particularly doesn't eat well at tea time. His daughter brings homemade cake and club sandwiches when she visits sometimes, and he has no trouble eating these. What might be going on here? Let's just brainstorm. We want to think of as many possible reasons as we can. Maybe John doesn't like the food we provide, as he commented himself. Is it the company of his daughter that's encouraging him to eat more? Is it because she's bringing him finger food? Pushing food round the plate could be a clue. Maybe as a farmer, John was used to having his main meal at lunchtime, and we're offering his main meal at the wrong time. Maybe John's depressed, maybe he's in pain, maybe he's constipated. Maybe he's still feeling unwell and his daughter is bringing him comfort food. Maybe John hasn't been able to be as active and outdoors as much as he recovers, and he hasn't built up his appetite. Or maybe he's changed his medication, and that's reducing his appetite by making the food taste odd. Maybe John's having trouble swallowing the food we're giving him. Has he been coughing? Was his chest infection from an aspiration pneumonia? Is it the way the food looks? Can he see the dinner food on the plate? Does the dinner meal feel too big? and that's putting them off. You can see that there's a huge range of possible reasons for John's problems. Brainstorming an important part of the problem-solving process, especially when we're working with people living with dementia. And that's because there are often multiple whys involved. Once you've done this kind of brainstorming, you'd proceed with the next stages, choosing the ideas you think are most likely to make a difference, doing them, and then evaluating the effectiveness. So you can see how we can put into place the key ideas that we've been talking about, encouraging, enabling, and adapting to help John to eat more. Thank you for spending this time with me, thinking about the importance of eating well for people living with dementia. We've been looking at the ways that we can work together with the person to support good eating, and I hope that you've found a lot that you can put into your own practice. Ngā mihi nui.
We hope you have found this Dementia STARs course valuable. We really appreciate the time you have taken to allow us to share some new ideas and fresh perspectives on this important topic with you. We hope you will return to your work with people living with dementia with renewed enthusiasm. It's such an important job, and you are a very precious part of the dementia family. The New Zealand Dementia Foundation would like to thank CHT Healthcare Trust for their generous support of this project. If you would like to learn more about the New Zealand Dementia Foundation's work, check out their website and join the community. This module is one of a series of Dementia STARs courses. You can find out more about the other topics from your workplace educator or on the New Zealand Dementia Foundation's website. Ngā mihi mai oha. Thank you so much for your commitment to people living with dementia.